Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be discussing whether you should sell or hold the Jordan 14 Ferrari. They're going to be dropping tomorrow, June 14th for $215. The Ferrari drop is not the only profitable drop inbound though. Aside from an imminent shock drop, I'm not just talking about sneakers. Guys, if you haven't started selling Pokemon already, you're missing out. Check out my beginner's guides to buying and selling Pokemon on my other channel, Endurance Pokemon, if you want to get started in 5 minutes. This is literally free money. The restocks are just so easy. The Pokemon community is not ready for how competitive sneaker resellers are. Anyway, these dropped for $215, and there's 21,000 pairs for Nike US alone, which is pretty low stock for a general release Jordan, and we'll talk more about the stock numbers later. In order to determine if the Jordan 14 Ferrari will be a fruitful hold, we will be covering an estimated range of what the sneaker will settle at after the drop, and also when shipments come in, essentially all pairs going into circulation, whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even continue to decrease, along with how much specifically over specific periods of time, and finally, what type of margin are we looking at for these in terms of holding them? Not the retail to resale initial margin, but rather the hold margin over X period of time. Basically, even if they go up, are they going to be worth your time or not? Kicking it off, let's discuss the estimated range that these should be settling at. Total stock for Nike US alone is 21,000 pairs. For comparison, that's way lower than the white cement Jordan 4 stock, which was over 60,000 on release date and 14,000 on exclusive access. It's also lower than the flu game Jordan 12 stock, which had about 32,000 pairs. It's also interesting to see that some retailers that usually get general release Jordans did not get these, such as DSG and Champs for men's sizes. Evidently, these are more limited than the typical general release Jordan, and that's a good sign for resale, but not a good sign if you just want a pair for the collection. Demand on Jordan 14s in general is rarely ever good, but this pair is one of the only exceptions. The Ferrari 14 has always had lots of hype. It's a highly desired colorway, and I couldn't agree more. I need a pair of these, and I don't usually like 14s. When the 2014 pair dropped, these were hyped back then, and the prices now, they creeped up to around $400 over time. Demand on these is already quite high. Sale volume looks pretty decent, nothing like the white cements. Luckily, the much lower stock though should compensate for the discrepancy that we're seeing in demand. Currently, sizes 8 to 12 in men are at an average of $299. At a retail of $215, you should be able to profit off these with or without tax, but if you do have tax, you should only focus on the large sizes. Now, after they drop, we often see a positive impulsivity effect where prices tend to jump 5 to 10% on many sneakers. While prices are already quite high for pre-sale on these, I could definitely see a positive impulsivity effect still. Since it's already close to $300, I'm not sure we're going to get a full 5 to 10% increase. Instead, I'll make a conservative estimate at 3%. We actually did not see one on the white cements, which I was wrong about. My apologies. I suppose the stock was just too high on those. I think the stock on these, though, should be low enough where we will see one. This would hypothetically leave the post-drop average at about $308. With that said, now let's discuss what price will look like once shipments go out in the 2 to 3 week range. During this period, the vast majority of pairs usually all go into circulation, and so normally we see about a 10% decrease in value on most general releases. I don't think it's going to be any different this time. Assuming the usual 10% decrease, these could end up settling as low as $277 on average, and that's why if you have tax, you should only go for the large sizes unless you get these in store and you could sell these day of before they drop in price. And now that the average price ranges at those points in time are evident, let's discuss whether they're expected to increase or decrease after this. The best comparison for these would of course be the Ferrari 14s themselves from 2014. They actually initially were selling for the same range that these are probably going to settle around, and from there we did see them appreciate quite a bit. I think it's pretty reasonable with the relatively low stock on these to expect a similar turnout. Finally, regarding the hold margin on these, essentially, are these actually worth your time? If these follow the same trend as the 2014 pair, that would lead to a pretty solid ROI pretty quickly. Hypothetically, if they get to $350 to $360, that's already a 25 to 30% ROI, which is pretty good. Overall, I'd rate these fairly above average at 6 out of 10. They should appreciate, and if you don't need the money, you might want to consider holding. It won't be the best hold, but it should be pretty decent. It won't be as good as holding the Nigels, which were rated a 6.5, but it's still above average. Remember, it's not about how great or hyped the shoe is, it's about what opportunity there is for a good ROI. If you're watching this before the drop, good luck, and remember, for any upcoming shock drops, all early info will be posted inside of Endurance, and consider starting Pokemon reselling too. Check out those free guides I made for you on my other YouTube channel, Endurance Pokemon. I'll leave some links in the description.